Good evening, everyone. We're going to get started right away. I'm going to invite you to take your seats. If on the way to taking your seats, you want to grab a cold drink or a coffee, by all means, and we'll get started right away.
Good evening. We aren't actually going to wait 5 minutes. So okay, we're going to get going right now. My name's Ian Walker. I represent Ward 1 on the school board for the LRSD. I'd like to start this evening with a land acknowledgement. The Louis Riel School Division brings together a community of schools on the traditional land of the Anishinaabeg and Innuwak and Dakota. Our division is located on the national homeland of the Red River Métis. We recognize that Manitoba is also the traditional land of the Anishinaabe and Dene. We respect the treaties made on this land and acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past and present. We dedicate ourselves to authentic alliances with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and cooperation. We recognize and honor Shoal Lake 40 First Nation, the source of Winnipeg's life-sustaining drinking water, as well as the treaty territories that generate and provide the electricity that powers daily activity throughout the province and beyond.
Thanks very much, Ian. Good evening, everyone, and welcome on Saturday night. It's my privilege on behalf of the board to welcome you this evening as chair of the board. I'd like to take this opportunity to do a few introductions, starting with my trusted colleagues. I'm just going to stand up and give a wave or whatever you feel you want to do. In Ward 1, you've already met Ian. Cindy Turner is the other board trustee who is joining us online. So good evening, Cindy. In Ward 2, Irene Nordheim and Chris Sigurdsson, who is en route. In Ward 3, Ryan Palmquist, also en route, and Peter Bjornsson is here, our newest addition to the board, as well as myself. And in Ward 4, Chapala Simagnola and Pam Polachek. I'd also like to introduce members of our senior leadership team who are here: our superintendent, Christian Michalik, our secretary treasurer, Jamie Rudnicki, our assistant secretary treasurer, Vanessa Ross, Assistant Superintendent Jeff Anderson, Assistant Superintendent Ron Cadez, Corey Kaplan, who is also Assistant Superintendent, and Assistant Superintendent Mia Gunther. In addition, Director of Information Technology Services Clark Hagan, our Director of School and Classroom Supports Nicholas Kelly, and Director of Staff Services Derek Sheldon, who is also new to his role, and we congratulate him on that. Also, a warm welcome to our colleagues in government who are here this evening. Mike Moyes, the MLA for Riel, Tyler Blatchko, MLA for Lachemaudière, and Renee Cable, who I believe is joining us online, the MLA for Southdale. We know that your plates are busy all the time, so we're very, very pleased that you can carve time out of your schedules to join us this evening. In terms of grounding our conversation this evening, I'd like to begin by reflecting a little bit on our vision and mission. The vision of the Louis Riel School Division is for all members of our community to excel as caring, confident, capable, and resilient lifelong learners who contribute to a democratic and sustainable world. And our mission is to provide a safe, inclusive, and engaging environment where personal and collective learning are valued, and each one of us reaches our full potential. Everybody who works and learns in Louis Riel and contributes in any way. And our model of thriving learners and flourishing communities is all about the work we do, very succinctly defined. The agenda is as follows. It's a bit of a tag team between myself and Jamie. So we're going to talk about our strategic plan. We're going to take a look at how school funding works and where LRSD is in 25 and 26. We do want to provide perspective on some of the pressures that we're facing and align that with the needs that our students and our staff have, and talk about what's at stake and what we are considering as we draft the budget for 26-27 with your input and with your help. We're going to take, after all that is done, there's about 30-ish slides, 32 maybe. We're going to take a break after that, just for you to have an opportunity to stretch and maybe chat amongst yourself, and then we'll come back for some question and answers. So those of you folks that are joining us online, that'll be a chance for you to maybe send in some questions in the chat feature that's been enabled for you. And then we'll spend a few minutes talking, and once we adjourn officially, I know the trustees are going to stick around for as long as you wanted to, and we can chat until, well, you can say until the cows come home, but we're definitely not doing that. Just a comment about this room, because it's kind of got this aggressive thing when it comes to temperature. So you may have noticed it was very cool when you walked in, and now it's, well, it's warm and now it feels like it's getting cool again. That's kind of the rhythm for the night. So those of you that arrive in the scarf or have something, good on you, because you're going to be reaching for it more than once. But that's just the way it goes. Somebody's moving. Are you moving my slide today?
No. I think it's.
Oh, I guess I nudged it. Okay. All right.
I thought it was magic.
The multi-year strategic plan, which will take us through to 2027, is directly linked to every line item in our budget, or every line item in our budget is directly linked to the multi-year strategic plan, depending on how you want to think about it. And it is this series of statements and beliefs that we have and what we're working towards that really helps us focus the conversation that the board and the senior leadership team and you are having for the next few weeks through to the middle of March. We have to submit our budget to government. This is online if you ever want to look at it, as is many of the things that we're going to refer to tonight. LRSD.net is your friend. There's all sorts of information that will help you if you want a little bit more context, or if you're just really interested in sort of digging in to some of the things that we're doing and the things that we offer, and the data and the strategy behind it. So this multi-year strategic plan is a very important document, and you can also within each of the strategic priorities, see where we are in terms of realizing the goals that we've set out for ourselves and for our community. So I would encourage you to take a look at that at some point if you're so inclined. Just get a case of water. So the trustees had a conversation in the fall, and one of the pieces of work that we tasked ourselves with in terms of setting up a conversation about budget is to identify what we prioritized the most as a board. And it is not to say that anything that you don't see here has fallen by the wayside, far from it. But when we had a conversation as a group of 9, and along with our senior team, what really rose to the top were the two things that you see: workplace safety and health, and project-based and technical vocational learning. And those were things that we identified as being top of mind for our community, for our staff, for our students, as we sort of chart the path through to 27 and then talk about a new strategic plan, but also as we chart a path developing a budget for 26-27 that directly align with all the strategic priorities. There was a lot of trustee support for the other items that you see listed here. And as I said, it doesn't mean that anything else that is in our strategic plan was not identified as key. Everything is key. But things get sort of addressed and engaged with in varying times and to varying degrees. And right now, this is what resonated with us back in October. So we wanted to share that with you so that you could see sort of where our thinking was at when we started thinking about budget. So to set us up for the evening, what we wanted to do is share some information with you, lots of information that will at least give you some background and perspective and help you frame some thinking as we talk specifically about the pressures that we're trying to navigate and how that translates into a budget development process. So the first thing, of course, is the reminder of where our school funding comes from. And most of you will, if not all of you, know all this already, because this is something that we talk about all the time, and we acknowledge all the time the varying contributors. So the provincial government, our local property tax revenue, the property tax rebate, and then other sources for us, such as our international student program and the renting out of our facilities and then student fees in certain instances. Where does the money go? Well, like any big organization, salaries and benefits are the bulk of that pie, if you will. And for us, just over 16% is operating cost, and the dollar value of that is shown there, approximately $45 million. Why do the salaries take such a big piece? Well, partially because we are a people-driven organization. Public education is. You'll see 83-ish%, give or take, as the number for every school board in the province, in terms of the percent that goes to salary spend. But the other part is that we want to quality education for our students. Again, that's not unique to Louisville School Division. That's very much the mindset of public education in the province. And we want to be able to attract and we want to be able to retain the staff that are going to ensure that our students succeed and that they're ready and excited about taking whatever the step is that comes after grade 12.
Excuse me.
We're still Louisville School Division. Well, we're 2,420 people strong. And you can see that the big number, 1,157, is our teaching staff. 9 trustees, 7 folks that work in the international program, and then our variety of numbers in between. And our board office staff, which are all the people that work in this building, are key and central to the energy and the hub of the school division. 62 of them who make sure all the other work is done, for whom we are really grateful. Some ratios for you to consider that kind of puts into perspective the contact that some of our staff have with our students. So classroom teacher to student ratio, 1 teacher for approximately every 22.5 students, that's the entire division. And you can see student services to students, who make educational assistance to students, clinicians to students, and for instructional support and indigenous education to student ratio 1 for every 701.2 students. That's significant. They're all significant ratios, and it just helps frame the important work that the staff do in terms of all the students that they have to reach and engage with, and assist, and celebrate with, and nurture. So we call this the perfect storm. The 5 major cost pressures that we're keeping an eye on, that we talk about all the time, and that are really central to us developing a budget and running a school division, governing and operating a school division, to make sure that everybody has everything that they need, including our buildings. And in addition to our students and our staff and their families and our community. These are the pressures that we are combining to create that perfect storm, if you will. And the perfect storm is an untenable situation financially for Louisville School Division. And I choose those words specifically. It's not my intent to fearmonger. It's not my intent to make you nervous in any way, but it's a reality. And one of the great things about you being here, our parents and our community members and our staff and our administrators, is that you are here because you believe that you have a role to play in figuring it all out. And we value that tremendously. And we're very glad that you are taking time to lend your voice to inform the work that we're going to be doing over the next 3 weeks. So let's take a look at these ones a little closer. From 2016 to 2023, the provincial government mandated austerity in several ways. And you'll all remember this. Provincial funding was relatively flat, or was flat. School divisions were restricted from raising funds through property tax increases. And Bill 28, which mandated wage freezes, but then was subsequently repealed and resulted in retroactive wage obligations, again, for every school division in the province, was something that compelled, if you want to talk about angst and anxiety, compelled a lot of both. And during this time, what was also going on was student enrollment was increasing. We navigated a global pandemic, inflation continued, and we deferred by choice infrastructure upgrades and repairs in order to achieve that money for things that we felt were more important, that were more of a priority. So at the end of it, what you have are more students, many more needs amongst our students coming into our schools, and less funding per child. And that's where things started to get a little bit problematic. If we look specifically at growth, you will see that over the last 10 years, we welcomed almost 2,500 new students into the Riel School Division. And a lot of that growth has been in the area of Sage Creek, a little bit more south along, what do we got? I guess the south, very south portion of River Park South and over. And this past year, a little bit of a decline, which was, we think, is short-lived based on all the data that we have and the projections that we do. But we need more teachers. We need more educational assistants. We need more supports for many students. We need more buses. We need more schools. We need classroom space and everything that is in the classroom. And we need more resources. And so this layer of the perfect storm related to growth is something that we're going to be navigating for the next little while. So think about the area. Think about Sage Creek in the area north, the name of which escapes me right now. But that whole area is being developed. And one of the documents that we have on our website, Plan 2034, outlines projections that we have and needs for schools well into, to 2034, and then we're going to be looking beyond. Because we've already identified that this is what we're going to have to navigate and grapple with and welcome all these students and families into our community. We talked about the perfect storm that includes inflation, which has gone up, as we all know. It's touched all of us in our personal lives, with our homes, with our cars, with things that we want to do with our families. So for us, as a school division, it's salaries and benefits, utilities, learning materials, transportation, fuel, maintenance, all those other things. And the gap for us then is the per student funding that's essentially been flat that would allow us to address many of these challenges that we're facing that are inflationary that are inflation related, excuse me. In 2016-2017, the province funding per student was $5,930. The provincial tax offset or rebate was almost $2,000 per student, and our school taxes, thanks to the ability to retain local taxation, combined for per student funding of $12,496. If we think of that in $24-25, that amounts to $15,434. The funding in 24-25 per student was not quite $1,000 less than that. So we have to think about that, and we have to plan for that, and we have to also at this point recognize the importance of that green slice of the bar, if you will, which is the ability for us to go to our local ratepayer to top up what our government funding is, to the extent that we can offer many of the additional programs and services that we know are needed, but also that our communities tell us that they want and value for their students, their neighbors' students, their grandchildren, et cetera, et cetera. Provincial support has improved, but gaps remain. So I talked about funding increases. I also talked about going back decades now. This is a decade-long challenge, problem, if you will. Funding has not kept up with needs of school divisions for a very, very long time. This is not a new problem. And in fact, I'd be remiss not to acknowledge what the funding increases of the last 2 years have allowed us to do, which was to meet some significant needs and address some significant issues that we really needed to act on, that we knew we needed to act on, and our community told us we needed to act on. But the reality is that doesn't allow us to address issues that have been building from previous governments way back. And so the example that we might use is related to infrastructure, which we're going to talk about shortly. And those are things that we defer on a regular basis to be able to free up dollars for other things. We also have to say thank you again to the local taxpayers. Last year and the year before, the bill rates were increased. We know that it's an impact on families. We don't take that step lightly. We have a lot of folks who say, this is tough for me. This is difficult for us, for our family. We're on a fixed income. We have a lot of folks that say, we recognize the importance and the value we're happy to contribute, and we will continue to do so. So we recognize both ends of that spectrum, if you will, in terms of ability to pay, and certainly should we be asking to the extent that we are. So that's an ongoing conversation, and we hear loud and clear all the time. We have right now one out of every 5 students in our school division requires some sort of specialized support. And so that's where clinical support services, the educational assistants, all these folks that come in to provide that support, that's where this graph is really important. Prior to the pandemic, that number was just over 1,400 students. Post-pandemic, acknowledging that our school division has grown, we're inching close to 4,000 students that need some additional care and support. And we will provide it for them. They need it, and we will do our level best to ensure that they are met right where they're at in terms of what they need. We also talk a lot about managing class sizes and keeping them at a size that is reasonable and that is fair and that ensures that all students are going to get the time and attention from the teacher that they need. And so the class size tracker is updated at the end of every day on our website. It's live. You can look at it anytime you want. You can look at it by school and by grade, and you can find all sorts of additional information there that I think you would find really interesting in terms of how many students there are in classes and in schools throughout our division. And so here you see the average class size from kindergarten to grade 3 is 19.8 students, and from grade 4 to grade 8 is 22.4 students. But we also know, and that's the letters in black aside, that without increased funding, the class sizes are going to grow. We need to talk about supporting staff while we manage all of these costs. And we focus here on a negotiated province-wide teacher contract last year that was saw the same contract apply for the first time, and this will be ongoing to all school divisions in Manitoba. So we were the last province to be negotiating teacher contracts individually by school division. Everybody, we're in line with everyone else in that regard right now. And the settlement included retroactive pay to 2022, which came out of our surplus at the time. There was no provincial funding that was provided for this amount. School divisions were hit with varying degrees with significant amount of retroactive pay, and that is the amount that has really depleted our accumulated surplus at the end of in October of 2024. And so that surplus, which was our financial cushion that would allow us to react and respond to any unforeseen emergencies that came across, that came our way, was disappeared. And we are mindful that we want to attract the best and retain the best. Competitive salaries are really, really important. But a negotiated contract without the financial support to pay what is owed within that contract really created some challenges. And again, not unique to L'Oreal, something that school divisions across Manitoba are having conversations about, And certainly, something that we are going to, as a new contract negotiation starts, at the end of June, continuing to keep an eye on and having to plan for. Finally, the perfect storm, aging schools, and infrastructure needs across the school division. So we have buildings, we have a school that's 6 months old in Sage Creek. We have schools that are over 100 years old, and a whole bunch in between. And the challenges that we face with those are exactly the same things that we would expect as our house gets older. We need new heating, we need ventilation, or we need air conditioning. We have to look after the roof. We need to redo the bathroom, upgrade the plumbing, the electrical, whatever that is. And so one of the things that we did in our last budget was make a commitment to, and we have a targeted plan to ensure that all of the schools in the Rail School Division have air conditioners. This is something that we've been hearing from staff in those schools, from kids in the schools and the families, going down a very, very long time. And that this was an investment that we decided was already overdue, and we made that commitment last year. So that was a significant and something to celebrate. We were very, very pleased to do it, and we look forward to seeing all of that completed, especially those 30+ days that are just around the corner. So where do we find ourselves in terms of a financial position as we start talking about the budget for the school year 2026-2027? It wasn't that long ago that we had a really healthy outlook in terms of an accumulated surplus in excess of $10 million, which was just over what the province recommends for 4%. We then had a wage settlement that essentially took all that money to cover the retroactive wages that were settled in the contract. We had an operating deficit in 2023-24, which further compromised things. And so where we found ourselves in June at the end of 2025 was an accumulated deficit, and we are now $12.6 million further away than we were in 2022-2023. That's huge. That means we have no cushion if something happens, and we are concerned, and we are working very, very hard to figure out a way to and make some commitments to ensuring that is rebuilt. Why adequate funding matters? Adequate is an important word. People talk about sufficient funding. People talk about enough funding. Adequate means that you've got enough money to address everything that you need to do. And so the word adequate, again, that a lot of school divisions are using, the National School Boards Association is using it in its communications to government, is adequate funding. We need the money to do what we need to do. The conversation that we are going to have at some point, and the extent to which it is more swinging to reductions or other things, will be informed by the funding announcement, which will happen at the beginning of February, and then conversations with community like we're having tonight about what they feel our approach should be. Is anticipating, even though we're anticipating that we are going to get the same funding as last year, we don't necessarily know that we can expect an increase. And so mostly what we're doing is talking about that quo, knowing though that there are some things that are going to compel the freeing up of some dollars. And so reductions could be a real conversation that we have to have. Because of reductions in certain staff, we may be in a position where we have to consider large class sizes. We may be in a position where those students, those getting close to 4,000 students that need some specialized attention, are maybe going to have to wait or not get enough of the attention that they need. We may be looking at reducing some programs, and we may be looking at, yet again, deferring some infrastructure repairs that we need to do in order to free up money for some of these other things. And that is where your voice is really, really important tonight. And in the coming days and weeks, we ask you to engage with your neighbors in terms of filling out a survey, is that we really want to know what your priorities are and what you want us to consider and what it is that you value in terms of where our budget money is going. Now, at this stage of the game, I'm going to hand things over to Jamie. He's going to dig a little bit deeper into the dollars of the equation. So having given you a sense of who we are as a division and what we value and what some of the things are that we want to accomplish, and a sense of what we feel some of the pressures are that are going to continue to impact what we do, James is going to attach some dollars to it, and then we will give you an opportunity to let that sort of percolate with some conversation and some thinking, and then come back and answer some questions that you might have. So, thank you, and Jamie, over to you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Newman. Thank you to the community for joining us tonight in this very important conversation. You might notice I'll be looking at Vanessa a lot because I have a tendency of dropping my arm down while talking, and I have a counting arm, so it's tough lifting this heavy mic, so please bear with me. So once again, thank you very much. And so essentially what will or what potentially will the financial outlook for 2026-2027 look like? So the preliminary budget for the 2026-2027 budget has been set for $281 million. And this includes the following changes. We're anticipating wage and benefit increases of about $10.9 million. What this reflects is maintaining a status quo in staffing level, so no increases or decreases in staffing. This reflects natural wage increases to reflect experience and years of service for staff that are not at top of scale. This accounts for the provincial harmonization of teacher salaries that has been negotiated at the provincial level between the provincial government and Manitoba Teacher Society, as well as this also reflects the anticipated negotiation wage settlements for our unionized non-teaching support staff. So that includes our clerical, technical, bus drivers, maintenance, and educational assistant groups. We are presenting today a reduction in supplies and services by $3.5 million. And this was intentional to try and offset some of the increased wage and benefits that we're going to be experiencing in the next school year. So what accounts for the reduction in $3.5 million is a deferral in some of our investments in technology. We plan on reducing and deferring the maintenance of some of our buildings, as Trustee Nevin has mentioned before. We are planning on reducing school budgets, as well as reducing the elimination of cost savings from our one-time costs for the opening of the new school. So last year in our budget, we budgeted a little over 3.5 million, but that expense has been eliminated in the budget for this year. Now, these cost reductions are partially offset by additional increases that we'll be experiencing. That's accounted for in increases in our transportation costs, our utilities, insurance costs, among other increases. And finally, the building and equipment line. This is the $2.3 million that we have budgeted for next year, which is a slight reduction of $140,000. And what this line item represents or reflects is our one-time costs. So, for example, as Trustee Nevin has mentioned, the board has committed to a 5-year plan to complete installation of air conditioning units in our school that don't have any. Additionally, this line item includes refresh of buses. We undergo a refresh of our bus fleet. I think it's 2 buses, between 2 and 3 buses a year. We have a fleet of about 30. As well as a refresh of our vehicle fleet, as well as building improvements. So at the end of the day, the budget of $281 million represents an increase of $7.2 million or 2.64%. So I've talked about the expenditure side of things and the increases, and as Trustee Nemeth has mentioned, we are anticipating a funding announcement at the end of January or beginning of February from our provincial government. And so over the past few years, our provincial governments have provided funding increases to the division to help offset inflation and growth. At the same time, the division has faced wage and benefit cost pressures due to increasing FTE to align with increased enrollment and higher student needs, and increases in salary costs resulting from wage settlements. And so, as you can see from the slide here, the financial support the province has provided, which we do value, has not addressed the increase in our wage obligations. To address this gap, the division has relied on local ratepayers to fill the funding gap. And so for the 2023-2024 school year, as we mentioned before, we received an 8.1% increase in funding, which equated to $8 million, and our salary increase was $9.1 million. In 2024-2025, we received from the province 6.26%. Which translated to $6.6 million in funding. Of that $6.6 million, there was a new program that the province rolled out, the $1.5 million to start the Universal Nutrition Program, which is an amazing program. If anyone or has any would like further information on the success of this program, I highly encourage you to engage with the Board of Trustees, and we do plan on doing a presentation in the near future regarding the Universal Nutrition Program. This investment by the province as well as the division has yielded great benefits, and so I want to thank everyone that's involved in that today. During that year, while the province invested in the Universal Nutrition Program, the board and the division undertook the implementation of a universal full-day kindergarten program. And this investment that we heard from the community increased those salaries of the $18.6 million by $2.2 million. And then in this current school year, 25-26 school year, the province provided us 2.4% or a $2.8 million increase, and our salary costs increased by $21.1 million. And this is to provide you context into what this is going to look like for next budget year. So as we wait for our funding announcement from the province, we know that our annual staffing costs will increase by $10.9 million. And so what does that mean? And so essentially what this means is that assuming, and I'm going to use the word assuming, the very unlikelihood that the provincial government provides no additional funding to the division. But by saying that, we have received the past and we do anticipate an increase in funding from the provincial government, that no increase would result in 11.53% mill rate increase. Like I said before, this is the worst case scenario, and we really anticipate a funding increase to help offset these this cost. That being said, there are still going to be requirements to still fill the gap. And so in this slide, we're laying out the scenarios as if we didn't receive any funding, what would that look like? So if we were to reduce the mill rate increase from 11.53 to 10%, that would result in the school division having to find $5.14 million. And as demonstrated in the last slide, we've really been purposeful in cutting the supplies and things. And so what's really left at the end of the day is staffing. And so that would mean layoffs. And to put it in context, and we're not picking on one group versus another, but just to give context, that $5.14 million to make up would result in a decrease of 57 teachers or 106 EAs. But like we said before, we would obviously be purposeful in looking at what we could reduce to still maintain the class sizes that we desire. And so what does that mean for the homeowner? So if we go and why we use 4% as the baseline is that on an average house value, which is 423,300 in our catchment, that would result in essentially no increase in property taxes for the year. Whereas if you go to the worst case scenario, mill rate increase of 11.53%, that would result in an increase of $193 for the taxpayer or $16.80 a month. And so to tie this in at the end of the day, what we're really talking about is responding to the pressures of inflation, enrollment, student needs, and wage escalation that have really created this perfect storm. Inflation over the past 9 years has resulted in an increase of 26.3% increase in costs. And to tie that to how you normalize what our funding was 9 years ago, our funding per pupil has not kept up with inflation. Enrollment over the past 10 years has increased by 16.3%. And over that same same period, our teaching staff, we've increased by 20.6% to address those enrollment needs. Our student needs pre-pandemic, which is 2018-2019, has increased significantly. We are now presenting, or our students are representing 1 in 5 that require specialized supports. That increase has been 157%. And over that same period, we increased educational assistant staffing by 31.5%, and clinical staff increases by 44.7% to address those needs. And finally, the wage escalations that we're facing in the division. And so in this current school year, we've added $21.1 million in wages over this period last year. And in order to address those increases, we've had to deplete our reserves. We've had to go to local ratepayer last year or this current year at 6.4%, 6.43%, to maintain the services and prevent layoffs. And so now I'm going to turn it back over to Trustee Knapp.
Great, thank you. So what is our ask of you folks this evening? I alluded earlier to a survey that is going to be shared online tomorrow that we will encourage and ask folks to fill out and provide us with your thoughts and your feedback. Please encourage your friends, your neighbors, and your colleagues to also engage. The presentation this evening will be online and watchable, and of course, filling out that survey will be informed by folks taking some time to watch this. There's trustees in the room, and we're all reachable once we say goodnight this evening. Please reach out with your individual comments and questions. We are on the receiving end of many stories from families who are struggling to ensure that their students, their children, are receiving the care that they need, the support that they need throughout the school day. And we have a senior leadership team and school administrators who are deeply committed and very generous and kind with their time and with their ability, with their knowledge, with their talents, their expertise to ensure that the students are supported and that their families are supported. And those stories that we hear really put a fine point on some of what we offered you tonight. Advocate with us. That is about spreading the word, if you will, and not only sharing the sticky stuff that we talked about tonight, the challenges, the difficulties, but reminding each other of the amazing things that are happening in Louis Riel School Division and the work that is being done because we get funding increases and because we retain the ability, the only province in Canada who retains the ability to go to the local ratepayer for extra money to make sure that those needs are to the greatest extent possible met. And that is not something we can take for granted. And with partners in education at the provincial level in the room, it's important for us, the board, to acknowledge how grateful we are for that, because it makes a huge difference. Provinces that rely strictly on general revenue and then don't have that ability to go to community for support. The stories that they're sharing aren't great ones. And we hear great stories all the time about things that are happening in our division and the impact, the positive impact that it's having, and the things that we can do for everybody in our school communities. So, key takeaways. I'm going to leave this slide here to inform conversations that you may want to have at your table, while we also take about 15 minutes just to sort of let everything that was shared sink in, because there was a lot. Again, we've got coffee and we've got cold drinks. Washrooms are just through the door over here, and you also passed another set when you came in. If you just want to get up also and have a walk. For the folks online, I hope you'll bear with us for 15 minutes and then come back. You have the ability to put questions in the chat that are being captured, and then we'll do a bit of a Q&A in about 15 minutes. So I leave these things with you just to remind you sort of of the picture that we drew for you tonight, and take some time to talk or not as you wish, and then in 15 minutes we'll come back and have some conversation as a larger. Thank you. It's 20 to 8. I think we're scheduled until 8 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken. We have several questions that are coming in through the chat, and I can only presume that there's a few questions in the room here. So I think if we want to give everybody a chance to ask their questions and have a response, we've got lots of expertise in the room with our senior leadership team present. So we have a lot of people that we can draw on for a variety of questions. We're going to be very, very mindful about trying to give everybody a chance, which means at some point, like at that 2-minute mark or whatever, we're going to move on to the next person. Does that sound reasonable to everybody? Just so that we can give everybody a chance, especially the folks online that have hung out with us for a while. So, but I will start with a question from in the room, if there is one that anybody has. Question at the back.
Yes, I had.
Do you want the microphone?
Oh, I think I can speak loud enough.
Okay.
At least that's what I was told.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay, so I got a few questions, but the main one is. I talked to you guys last week about it. If you got a deficit, I'm still trying to understand this pay raise stuff, right? What is considered on the directors, or sorry, the trustees? What do you consider a decent pay raise for somebody? Are you talking 20%, 7%? Like, I'm just looking and if you look at 1 year and then the next year, the people's pay goes up $20,000. That's a good raise. Not saying they don't deserve it. I'm just stating a fact. The other one, you're gonna have to help me understand this one. You have a superintendent and you have 4 assistants? What? these guys are getting paid a lot of money. I'm pretty sure they could probably amalgamate a couple positions and just to save money. I just don't understand why you can have four. It doesn't make any sense.
So I'm gonna answer your second question first, and then I'm gonna turn the salary increase, like the union negotiating one, I'm gonna ask Jamie, are you okay
No.
with that?
But I'm talking like a min staff. I'm talking,
Yep.
they have a union.
No, they do not. No.
And I think I asked this last week where you guys said that the trustees make the decision on pay raises for the admin. Teachers are done by the government.
The teachers and the support staff, those are negotiated through their unions with the school division. The folks that work in this building that are not part of a union, the non-board office staff, typically get an increase that the support staff get. Your question about the number of senior staff that we have at the superintendent and administrative and assistant superintendent level is a good question. I'm actually glad that somebody has asked it in person instead of like on Facebook with a bunch of other stuff added to it. Because for me, it's very easy to answer. And I'll preface it by, and I'm not sure if you knew this, but there was a time a while back, previous government to this one, where part of that austerity measure was a cut in the percentage of administrative staff at that level, at the senior level that school divisions could have relative to the size of their division.
Okay.
And at the time, we lost an assistant superintendent, somebody who was incredibly knowledgeable, very talented, had years and years, decades of experience. And
Easy.
And we lost that historical knowledge and all that opportunity, and now she's back as a school trustee. So,
So you had five?
no, we had four, we went down to three. And then it was very quickly realized for a growing school division, we needed the fourth back. And the board agreed that in order for us to continue to do what we wanted to do for the division and to support, because now that one person's job was being done by three other people, that we felt that that was a good expense.
Okay, so,
And I still feel that way.
okay, so then why do you have a superintendent? You have four of them, I'm sure they could do the superintendent's job. My point is, you guys are trying to save money, and I'm looking, admin staff, superintendent, this assistant super, their pay raises are going up. I don't see them holding at a pay raise. My point is you want to get money from me for taxes. I have no problem with that, if it's gonna go to the right thing. If you're gonna keep people and their raises in the staff here are going up, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, I would disagree. What I want as a school trustee and what my colleagues want are the best people for the job. We want the best senior administrators, the best educational leaders, the best money managers, et cetera, that we can get because we feel that's what our school division deserves. And Pam's waving her hand madly there, so just give me a second. There are many people that think we're top heavy in that capacity, we're not. In fact, when the exercise was done, as we prepared for tonight, in anticipation of this kind of a question, and we're somewhere in the middle. In other school districts and divisions throughout the country that are similar to our size, we're about middle of the road in terms of administrative support. So I'm going to commit to come and have a conversation with you when we've wrapped up, but I really want to go on to another question. And actually, I think Pam is going to come and have a conversation with you, but was there something?
Can I just?
Yeah.
So what we have to realize is that the Louis Riel School Division is like a company or a business at the end of the day. And the workers don't run the company, the CEO runs the company, and our superintendent is the CEO. And just like any other large organization, in this case, we are a $200 million organization. We need VPs or C-suite staff, and we have 4 of those.
Okay, I
And when
get
you
that, I do.
yeah.
However, as far as I know, A school division is a nonprofit organization. It's not profit. So you're talking, you're mixing oranges with apples now.
Okay,
But nonprofits have CEOs and VPs.
Agreed, but they also
Okay,
don't have four other people helping them do this one job.
we've committed to having a conversation after, out of respect for everybody in the room and the folks online. Thanks for your patience and for your questions. Okay, online, we have a question? Can you point to me after? So the question is, how can we be contemplating staff layoffs when the enrollment numbers, as well as the number of children with exceptionalities, indicates that the need for staff is there? How will students with exceptionalities have their needs addressed? And so I think that's part of the question. You know, that is the crux of a lot of it. So thank you for that. All right, question in the room. Anybody? Question back?
I have a question. One of the things, we're running a deficit. Why are we running PDs off-site where it's costing us money? October 1st, we ran one at the convention center for the entire staff, students, or all the staff of LRSD, where we could have ran that on Teams. I don't know what that cost us, but we're running a deficit. Why are we running that off-site? As well as individual schools are running PDs off-site at a cost. Where is that money coming from?
Okay, do you talk about? Okay.
Yeah, so as part of the budget that we deliberate and pass every year, we are allocated certain funds for certain things, one being PD. And as a school division, we find that having PD informing our staff on different aspects of learning, especially around truth and reconciliation, is very important. And so as one of those initiatives, we brought people together at the, I think it was the RBC
Convention center.
Yeah. And so those are budgeted for as part of the budget process. Now, in this year's budget, in the 2026-2027 budget, you'll notice that in the supply and things line that I pointed out to you that we are reducing budgets by $3.5 million. And part of those cuts are not only stuff and things in the schools, in operations, maintenance, and technology, but it's also a reduction of PD numbers. So in this budget, there is still no PD money allocated to support learning of our staff, because it's important to have staff that are informed. But they're going to be reduced next year, and that's going to be reflected in this.
It's just that the convention center was like, it's not that it wasn't a good idea. We're in such a big room. We had one screen, so half the room couldn't see nothing. So half the room's got no information at all. I just wanted for people, unfortunately, at the back, heard nothing, couldn't see nothing, it was very hard, just the way it was set up in that.
Yeah, so that's more logistics thing.
Online? Okay. Will there be a difference on the impact in French immersion versus English schools? We've already had instances of no French teachers available for subs and term positions at our school and other schools in the division. Well, I guess the short answer is that remains to be seen. Part of that recruitment and retention piece is the reality that French immersion, French teachers are in very short supply right now. And the ability to hire them is directly reflective of how many there are. And so I don't know how to answer that question right now. Our hope is that the conversations that our senior team are having related to building from within, or looking at programs that are going to generate French immersion teachers in Louis Riel, that stay in Louis Riel, will bear some fruit. But at the same time, we know we're competing with every other school division for the same folks. So it is a very challenging situation, and there is no clear answer at this point in time. Christian, have I answered that relatively straightforward? I think not.
No, all I can offer is that if you look to the website in December, we advertised positions, teaching positions in French immersion, specific positions. So we've come out recruiting early in a very specific way. And so that should result in not having the vacancies we've experienced this year.
Question in the room?
I'll take it.
Oh. Yes,
Take the mic.
okay.
The gentleman at the back talked a little bit about PD for staff. I'm wondering if there's a budget allocation for PD on administrative side. And does that also is there any expenditures that are expected that where travel is outside of Canada, Winnipeg, etc.? And what does that look like in terms of educational dollars associated with the budget? I understand that there was a board meeting where we talked about no travel outside of the US. Has there been any travel outward?
Are you referring to something in specific, in general? So there is a budget that our superintendent has, that is in budget, that provide for professional learning for senior staff. And that is for him to use at his discretion in the way that he feels is going to most benefit the school division. And he does that with the board's support. The reference to no travel in the US is directly related to the political climate there right now. We put a temporary pause on travel for students and for school trustees and staff. But that doesn't preclude important learning opportunities. And you may be referring to the group that went to New Zealand, where there was some learning and an opportunity present at an invitation to present specific to Indigenous learning and Indigenous education. And there will be a presentation, the board will receive a presentation on that and how that is going to perhaps inform some of the conversations and the work that are being done in the school division. And then I believe the second part of your question was budget related, and certainly those are all lines that are in the budget is what the board is going to look at. Our secretary treasurer has alluded to a line by line process, and if there are cuts across the division, they touch every what's the word I'm looking for? Aspect, yes. They're not cherry picked. If one group is being asked to give, all groups give. Does that answer your question? Perfect, thank you. Question on the line? No question on the line? Okay. Any other questions in the room? Yes, go ahead, and then over on this side.
Okay.
You want the microphone?
No, fine. Okay, here's my question. Part of the slide says that due to the inflation and the provincial fund that is decreasing, that it may affect the class sizes. So personally, I think if there's a way we can guide against that, because the teachers are human. Attending to individuals, like 30 children in a class, it's overwhelming. So here again, I saw it, I'm saying it now, that without provincial funding, tax increases to affect the class. What can we do to guard against that? That is my question.
What can we do to, I'm sorry, I get that.
I mean, to stop that, to guide against that, so that it wouldn't happen.
Yeah. Well, those would be the things that we're asking you to have conversations about with your neighbors and with the parents in your, assuming you have a child in school, sorry, I didn't make that assumption, but, with the parents in your child's school about exactly what we shared tonight, what the potential outcomes are of having to make decisions that were outlined where we're seeing reductions in staff. And so we share a similar concern as a board, as a senior team, because we know, and as was stated, the reduction of teachers and of educational assistants will have implications exactly the way you pointed out, and you're talking specifically about an increase in class size. And we, again, and many other divisions, but our senior team spends a lot of time especially at the beginning of a school year or after we welcome students, making sure that class sizes are staying at the amount that we believe philosophically is the best for the best size for student-teacher ratio for optimal learning. And so that class size tracker is super important. That is something that is a requirement. But it's about sharing accurate information, and then it's about asking folks to have conversations with the people who have the ability to inform the decision as to what funding looks like. I felt like that was a really good answer to a very good and pointed question, but thank you for that question. That's great. There's a question over here. Do you have the microphone?
I got a big mouth, I can speak yell if I wanted to.
All right, I'd just like to make a pitch to the trustee for the 26-27 budget, and I am a huge advocate of air conditioning. I know in the multi-year strategic plan, there is commitment for safe, modern, and accessible learning spaces. I know last year there was a commitment to, I believe it was 6 years. There are 10 schools outstanding. That the commitment was to get it done in 6 years. $630,000 was the budget for this year. First question, how many, is that like 2 schools roughly?
So I'll speak loudly. So in the 26-27 budget, we've allocated $800,000 towards implementation or installation of new air conditionings. I don't have, and I don't think Amber Beer is online, how many schools that is. I'll update the community on that. But it's basically, we do have a systematic of each school per year.
So
So
my pitch is whether you got 2 that done this year, 2 more, I'm gonna suggest let's just get her done, and this is why. As Sandy alluded, we have a lot of old aging infrastructure. I think the word modern, obviously we want safe and accessible properties. Modern is somewhat aspirational. We do have properties in this division that are the Taj Mahal. We have others that are being held together by duct tape. So if there is a will and a way, I would love to see, because when I'm thinking of the comfort of our staff and our students, okay? I would recommend, and people are gonna hate me for this, but I would like to focus on the inside learning, and which is our classroom. So I think our teachers and our students are entitled to have air conditioning everywhere, and if there's a possibility to just get it done in this next fiscal year, and perhaps we forego outdoor classrooms temporarily on pause, perhaps we forego upgrading playground structures, unless of course they're not safe. I'm just suggesting that can we prioritize the in-classroom experience for our staff and students? Completing it 5 years out is, in my opinion, is still unacceptable. So if I would, I'm gonna challenge Cindy and Ian, my Ward 1 trustees, to take that to the table on my behalf. Thank you.
Yep. I'm just gonna say that, I love the attitude of that, right? To get it done, we would love to. And so as part of this public consultation meeting and engaging with the trustees, I encourage everyone to reach out and be sending an online survey as well, providing feedback on these important things, because what you mentioned us also we value. So, and so, you know, we do our best, but there's a balance at the end of the day. But preaching to the choir on that.
All right, we have one last question here, and then maybe 2, depending on how quick your question is, and then we're going to adjourn.
Okay, I just want to continue the conversation about infrastructure. So I'm currently serving as a parent volunteer at School Community Council for Sage Creek, Bona Vista. And it's a brand new school, 6 months. And believe it or not, they build schools without play structures, playgrounds next to them. So currently, I believe province builds schools, division buys school furniture, but there's nothing left for the play structure. So it falls on parents, volunteers to go source funding, and with the ballooning cost of those play structures to make them safe, accessible, for everyone, especially people with mobility issues. It's like $500,000 just for two play structures. And it's unachievable to go to door to door, obviously trying to apply for grants, but we need help. And I'm sure that other schools with aging playground structures, which require maintenance, such as being shut down, would be nice to have some kind of budget allocations to schools to help with the costs of building and then maintaining them and replacing them, things like that. Thank you.
Thank you. So my question will have to do with the funding model. Because from your presentation, it's clear that there are clearly defined ways by which the division gets money. So I want to find out, has the school division taken time to study which of the funding sources is lagging? Because the presupposition is that as the population in a particular area increases, the property tax yield also increases and that fashion. But what you said as well, provincial government also has increased, the funding to the schools. So what exactly has been the lag? Because we used to have surpluses, and now suddenly we're having, so apart from inflation, which I think taken care of by the marginal increases in all the tax types. So what exactly is the funding type that has been lagging in terms of making for the budget of the division?
Sure. I would say from the perspective of the school board, and as I hope that I was articulate about, this is not a this year problem, it's not a last year problem, it's not a 10 years ago problem. It is funding that has not kept up from way back. So if you want to talk about the government funding aspect, it is successive year over year over year of the funding not keeping up. Now I did allude to the last 2 years where the funding has been significant enough that we were able to address some things that we had put off. But it is just ongoing funding that's not meeting the needs, and then the school board recognizing that we can only ask the local community for so much. And so that's the conversation that is a good one and a hard one for us. Is at what point can we just not ask our community for any more? So it's a combination of two things, but at the end of the day, and if you look back, like when I first joined the board, in 2010, the gap between what was local funding and what was provincial funding was pretty huge. And over time, it's gotten a little bit smaller. So we're asking local community for more in response to government providing less. Does that help? Yeah. Ish. I'm gonna let Jamie see if he can frame it any differently.
Okay.
Would you will?
Thank you. Yeah, so I guess the best way to describe it is when you're looking at the increased costs and pressures that face not only the Real School Division, but also our other school divisions in the province. And it comes down to partnership. And it's a partnership between the school division, the board of trustees, community, and the provincial government. We rely on each other to fund education, essentially. And so as a partnership, the provincial government will come to the table with us and say, this is the dollars that we can provide to support education in the community. And we have to recognize that they have pressures as well. Whether it's healthcare, whether it's natural disasters, and any other sector that they have. And there's only so much finite money. And so at the local level, based on the direction of the trustees and the community, is we try and fill those gaps between what the province can provide us and what we feel is necessary to provide high quality education to our students. And so in recognizing that affordability is a huge issue in this province right now. We try to find that balance, and it goes back to that slide where it's essentially a balancing act between students and student needs and what we can ask our community for funding. And so think of it as a balance, a partnership where the province comes to the table, provides what they can, and then from there, what gaps can we fill at the end of the day? And so that's probably the best way to describe it, is filling in the gaps by going to community, asking what the priorities are, and coming up with a budget that will satisfy everyone. Fair enough?
May I ask Jamie just a quick question on that mill rate?
Yeah.
Just, and this hypothetically.
Yeah.
So 2 years ago was 7.5%, last year was 6.43. Does the school board have a ceiling on like you can't go any further? Like for one year slide says worst case scenario, you may be looking at 11%.
Yeah.
What would happen if your provincial partners ever came to you and said, you know what? We had a lot of public backlash last year from all school divisions levying higher tax rates.
Yeah.
We're gonna still give you that power to levy taxes, but no more than 7. That is it. That's your ceiling. Could that ever happen? Has that ever happened?
Of course, it's happened. That's the whole austerity slide page that we presented.
Okay.
This division, this province in previous governments, I don't know how far back it goes, 13 years, like it all blends together nowadays, but it does. They capped it at 2%. And when they capped it at 2%, the problem with that funding or that cap was that the division wasn't, that were growing divisions were not able to capture the increase in assessments in the area. And so what you found over the past and I have the stats there, but I'm going to say, and I'll provide this on our website as well, is mill rates decreased significantly for about a 7-8-year period, and taxpayers or the ratepayers were paying less in taxes. And so what ends up happening is that the austerity measures came into play, and then when they got lifted, we found that we were so behind on the 8 ball in funding, whether that was funding staff and salaries, the infrastructure deficit, that this is why you're seeing those huge increases now. And I don't know if I answered the roundabout way.
Would you anticipate any type of cap imposed by our provincial partners this year, or you haven't heard anything like that? It's still like you're free to execute. You basically have the power to tax whatever you deem appropriate. My 85-year-old mother is still in the family home.
Yeah.
Whether she likes it or not, when you guys make your decision, it's a done deal.
Yeah, I can't speak on behalf of the government and what they're gonna whether they're going to give a directive or not. At this current time, we are going under the hope that won't happen, but we also want to be respectful and mindful that the decisions that we make are going to have impact on our community as well, right? And so finding that balance. But at this moment, I'm not aware of any directive, but I could get a phone call tomorrow.
I want to thank you on behalf of the Board of Trustees and your leadership team for taking some time to join us tonight. Trustees are going to stick around for a while. See, the leadership team will be here for a little while if you've got any questions. Thank you very much to our partners in government that's here and online for joining us. We value your presence, and we know we push back, but you push back too, and that's part of what makes it good, is that we do that respectfully and with the same goal is to ensure food success. So I think it's cold outside. I don't know what the driving's like, but well, folks, drive carefully. And thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, nice to meet you, boss. Yeah,